Rainforests often appear ancient, stable, and self-sustaining. Towering trees and layered canopies create the impression of a system that runs on its own, unchanged across generations. But stability in nature is rarely automatic. What looks permanent on the surface is often maintained by hidden processes operating quietly beneath the canopy, long before any change becomes visible. When these processes fail, forests do not collapse all at once. They weaken slowly, losing structure and balance over decades, while still appearing healthy to anyone passing through. In Southeast Asia, this kind of slow failure is already underway, and the cause is not always chainsaws or fire, but the absence of a single biological role. The missing element is not a tree, a river, or a climate pattern. It is an animal that spends almost its entire life above the ground, moving quietly through the canopy. Orangutans are rarely seen from below and rarely heard. Their movements are slow, deliberate, and energy-conserving, shaped by a life that avoids the forest floor whenever possible. Yet this quiet, solitary animal plays a role far larger than its presence suggests. To understand why rainforests collapse without orangutans, the system they support must be seen clearly. Orangutans spend nearly their entire lives above the forest floor. From feeding to resting, most activity happens within the canopy, where movement replaces descent as the primary way to survive. This vertical lifestyle shapes everything about the orangutan's body. Long arms extend reach, not speed, allowing controlled movement between trees without dropping to the ground. Falling is costly here. A misstep can mean injury or death, so every movement is calculated, tested, and repeated only when necessary. Energy conservation governs daily behavior. Orangutans move less than most large mammals, often resting for long periods to avoid unnecessary expenditure. Diet reinforces this strategy. Orangutans favor ripe fruit, an energy-dense resource that supports slow movement and long rest cycles. Because fruiting is seasonal and unpredictable, orangutans cannot rely on constant availability. Their survival depends on remembering where food appears and when. This reliance on memory turns movement into planning. Routes are chosen not for speed, but for reliability across time. Over years, this slow, deliberate life creates an unexpected consequence. The way orangutans move and feed begins to shape the forest itself. Tropical rainforests depend on animals to move seeds away from parent trees. Without dispersal, even healthy forests struggle to regenerate. Many rainforest seeds are too large for birds to carry. Their size protects them from predators, but also limits how far they can travel. Smaller mammals can move seeds, but only short distances. Most drop them close to where they were eaten, creating competition beneath the same trees. Orangutans operate at a different scale. Their size allows them to consume the largest fruits in the forest, seeds that few other animals can process. These seeds pass through intact. They are not destroyed by chewing, and they emerge ready to grow far from where they originated. Distance changes everything. Seeds deposited far from parent trees avoid overcrowding, disease, and competition for light. By moving slowly through wide canopy ranges, orangutans spread seeds across large areas, linking distant parts of the forest into a single system. This pattern shapes forest structure. Tree species that rely on large animals persist only where dispersal continues. Without orangutans, these trees do not vanish immediately. They simply fail to replace themselves, one generation at a time. Orangutans do not disperse seeds quickly. Their feeding follows long cycles, shaped by seasons rather than daily routines. They return to the same fruiting trees after months or even years, guided by memory instead of immediate cues. This long memory turns movement into a delayed system. Seeds are released according to fruiting cycles, not convenience. Because dispersal is spread across time, regeneration does not happen all at once. It unfolds in staggered waves. This delay creates structure. Young trees grow where light, soil, and space allow survival, not where fruit simply fell. Over decades, this process builds diversity. Different species establish at different times, preventing dominance by any single type. The forest that emerges is not random. It reflects the timing of dispersal as much as the biology of the trees themselves. Few animals can reproduce this pattern. Size, diet, movement, and memory must align for the system to work. Without orangutans, the timing breaks. And when that timing fails, forest regeneration begins to lose its rhythm. When orangutans disappear, the change does not begin with silence or empty forests. It begins with seeds that no longer move. Large fruited trees are the first to suffer. Their seeds remain trapped beneath parent canopies, unable to reach new ground. Without distance, survival drops. Disease, pests, and competition increase, reducing the number of seedlings that reach maturity. Over time, species that rely on large dispersers begin to decline. Their absence is gradual, but it continues steadily across generations. Smaller plants and fast-growing species start to dominate. The forest shifts toward what can reproduce quickly, not what sustains complexity. As structure simplifies, moisture retention changes. Shade decreases, temperatures rise, and soil conditions slowly alter. Insects respond first to these changes, followed by birds and mammals that depend on stable, layered canopies to survive. None of this feels like collapse in the moment. The forest still stands, green and intact, especially to an untrained eye. But function has already changed beneath the surface. By the time loss becomes obvious, the system has already become difficult to restore. Orangutans are often framed as symbols of conservation. Images focus on faces, expressions, and emotion, rather than function. But the role that matters most is not symbolic. It is mechanical, shaped by biology rather than intention or awareness. No other animal in these forests performs the same function at the same scale. The combination of size, movement, and feeding behavior makes this role unique and unmatched. Birds move small seeds. Smaller mammals move them short distances. But large fruited trees depend on something bigger. Orangutans combine size, diet, memory, and movement in a way no other species can replicate, forming a system that functions only when all parts align. Remove one of these elements, and the system begins to weaken. Remove all of them together, and the entire structure eventually fails. This is why replacement is not possible. No other species can simply step in and perform the same role within the forest system. What disappears first is not the forest itself, but the function that quietly holds it together long before visible damage begins to appear. Rainforests are not just collections of trees. They function as systems, built from countless interactions that must remain aligned over time. When one interaction disappears, the forest does not collapse immediately. Instead, its internal balance begins to drift. Orangutans are not gardeners by intention. Their bodies and behavior simply perform the work as a consequence of how they survive. Seed dispersal, spacing, and regeneration occur automatically, without planning or awareness, emerging directly from how the system operates. As long as orangutans remain part of the system, this quiet work continues without interruption, generation after generation, sustaining the forest over time. When they are removed, the forest does not vanish. It continues to stand, but it no longer functions in the same way. Complexity slowly gives way to simplicity, as diversity is replaced by dominance from a few highly adaptable species. This change is not dramatic. It unfolds quietly over decades, beyond the timescale of normal human attention and awareness. The forest does not remember names, faces, or intentions. It responds only to whether its systems continue to function as intended. Without orangutans, the rainforest still stands. But what once held it together no longer operates as it should, quietly altering the system from within.